If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. The Great Fire of 1910, also commonly referred to as the Big Blow-Off, the Big Burn, or the Devil's Broom Fire, was a wildfire in the inland northwest region of the United States that in the summer of 1910 burned 3 million acres, 4,700 square miles, 12,100 square kilometers, approximately the size of Connecticut, in North Idaho and western Montana, with extensions into eastern Washington and southeast British Columbia. The area burned included large parts of the Bitterroot, Cabinet, Clearwater, Coeur d'Alene, Flathead, Connexu, Kootenay, Lewis and Clark, Lolo, and St. Joe National Forests. The fire burned over 2 days on the weekend of August 20th to 21st, after strong winds caused numerous smaller fires to combine into a firestorm of unprecedented size. It killed 87 people, mostly firefighters, destroyed numerous man-made structures, including several entire towns, and burned more than 3 million acres of forest with an estimated $1 billion worth of timber lost. It is believed to be the largest, although not the deadliest, forest fire in U.S. history. In the aftermath of the fire, the U.S. Forest Service received considerable recognition for its firefighting efforts, including a doubling of its budget from Congress. The outcome was to highlight firefighters as public heroes while raising public awareness of national nature conservation. The fire is often considered a significant impetus in the development of early wildfire prevention and suppression strategies. Origin. A number of factors contributed to the destruction caused by the Great Fire of 1910. The wildfire season started early that year because the winter of 1909 to 1910 and the spring and summer of 1910 were extremely dry, and the summer sufficiently hot to have been described as like no others. The drought resulted in forests with abundant dry fuel, in an area which had previously experienced dependable autumn and winter moisture. Hundreds of fires were ignited by hot cinders flung from locomotives, sparks, lightning, and backfiring crews. By mid-August, there were 1,000 to 3,000 individual fires burning in Idaho, Montana, and Washington. The Big Blow-Up, August 20th, Saturday, brought hurricane-force winds to the interior northwest, whipping the hundreds of small fires into one or two much larger blazing infernos. Such a conflagration was impossible to fight, there were too few men and supplies. The United States Forest Service, then called the National Forest Service, was only 5 years old at the time and unprepared for the possibilities of the dry summer or a fire of this magnitude, although throughout the summer it had been urgently recruiting as many men as possible to fight the hundreds of fires already burning, many of them with little forestry or firefighting experience. Earlier in August, President William Howard Taft had authorized the addition of military troops to the effort, and 4,000 troops, including 7 companies from the U.S. Army's 25th Infantry Regiment, known as the Buffalo Soldiers, were brought in to help fight the fires burning in the northern Rockies. The arrival of the Buffalo Soldiers troops almost doubled the black population of Idaho. Smoke from the fire was said to have been seen as far east as Watertown, New York, and as far south as Denver, Colorado. It was reported that, at night, 500 miles, 800 kilometers, out into the Pacific Ocean, ships could not navigate by the stars because the sky was cloudy with smoke. The extreme scorching heat of the sudden inferno has been attributed to the expansive western white pine forests that covered much of northern Idaho at the time, due to their flammable sap. Perhaps the most famous story of survival is that of Ranger Ed Pulaski, a U.S. Forest Service ranger who led a large crew of about 44 men to safety in an abandoned prospect mine outside of Wallace, Idaho, just as they were about to be overtaken by the fire. It is said that Pulaski fought off the flames at the mouth of the shaft until he passed out like the others. Around midnight, a man announced that he, at least, was getting out of there. Knowing that they would have no chance of survival if they ran, Pulaski drew his pistol, threatening to shoot the first person who tried to leave. In the end, all but 5 of the 40 or so men survived. Pulaski has since been widely celebrated as a hero for his efforts. The mine tunnel in which he and his crew sheltered from the fire, now known as the Pulaski Tunnel, is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Ed Pulaski was a heroic figure in the realm of firefighting, particularly known for his actions during the Big Blow-Up of 1910, a catastrophic wildfire in the western United States. Pulaski's innovative firefighting tools and his leadership in protecting his crew during the Big Blowup have left a lasting impact on wildfire management. Innovation in tools. Recognizing the need for better tools for firefighting, Pulaski designed the Pulaski tool, a combination of an axe and an adze, which proved to be highly effective for cutting through vegetation and soil during firefighting efforts. The Big Blowup of 1910. Leadership during crisis. Pulaski's leadership during the Big Blowup of 1910 became legendary. Faced with the rapidly advancing wildfire, he led a crew of firefighters to take refuge in an abandoned mine shaft. Survival in the mine. The crew, including Pulaski, spent a harrowing night in the mine as the fire raged outside. Pulaski's quick thinking and leadership in directing the crew to cover themselves with wet blankets likely saved many lives. Legacy and impact. Pulaski tool. The Pulaski tool, initially created by Pulaski himself, became a standard tool for wildland firefighters. Its design proved highly effective for cutting through vegetation and creating fire breaks. Recognition. Ed Pulaski's contributions to firefighting and his heroic actions during the Big Blowup have been widely recognized. He is remembered as a key figure in the history of wildfire management. Pulaski Tunnel. In honor of Ed Pulaski, the Pulaski Tunnel Historic Site was established in Wallace, Idaho. The site includes a reconstructed portion of the tunnel where Pulaski and his crew sought refuge during the Big Blowup. Ed Pulaski's legacy endures not only in the tool that bears his name but also in the lessons learned from his courageous actions during a time of crisis. His contributions have had a lasting impact on wildfire management practices, and the Pulaski tool remains an essential piece of equipment for firefighters dealing with wildland fires. Aftermath. Wallace. After the Big Blowup, the fire was finally extinguished when another cold front swept in, bringing steady rain and some early snowfall. Several towns were completely destroyed by the fire. Idaho, Falcon, Grand Forks, Montana, DeBorja, Hagen, Henderson, Taft, Tuscarora. In Idaho, 1/3 of the town of Wallace was burned to the ground, with an estimated $1 million in damage, equivalent to $31,490,000 in 2023. Passenger trains evacuated thousands of Wallace residents to Spokane and Missoula. Another train with 1,000 people from Avery took refuge in a tunnel after racing across a burning trestle. Other towns with severe damage included Burke, Kellogg, Murray, and Osborne, all in Idaho. The towns of Avery, Saltese, Mt., as well as a major part of Wallace, were saved by backfires. The smoke from the fire went as far to the east as New York City, and as far south as Dallas. Legacy. The Centennial Commemoration in Wallace, Idaho. The Great Fire of 1910 cemented and shaped the U.S. Forest Service, which at the time was a newly established department on the verge of cancellation, facing opposition from mining and forestry interests. Before the epic conflagration, there were many debates about the best way to handle forest fires, whether to let them burn because they were a part of nature and were expensive to fight, or to fight them in order to protect the forests. The Forest Service had instituted a policy of extinguishing all fires as quickly as possible in 1908. That strategy was called into question after the Great Fire, but Fire Chief Henry Graves, the second chief forester for the Forest Service, doubled down following the Big Blowup, calling for a more aggressive fire prevention policy. He launched a campaign to remove fire from the landscape. His efforts would lead to the creation of the Weeks Act, which called for cooperation among federal, state and private agencies to address fire protection. The Weeks Act has been credited with saving nearly 20 million acres of forest land. One of the people who fought the fire, Ferdinand Silcox, went on to become the fifth chief of the Forest Service. Influenced by the devastation of the Big Blowup, Silcox promoted the 10 a.m. policy, with the goal of suppressing all fires by 10 a.m. of the day following their report. It was decided that the Forest Service was to prevent and battle every wildfire.